Let's each and every one of you. Let's fight. Welcome in the ring. Good to see you all here on a Friday night. Final show for the week, folks. Final show for the day as well. We're looking forward, just like you, to the weekend. Gather around, folks. We got so much to share with you. Some breaking news we're going to share with you in just a little bit, folks. Good to have all of you on the live here tonight from the many places you all are joining us from. Cecile and all the other beautiful folks who are joining us. Great to see all of you. Pace and power. You all know how we do it, how we see it. Lots happening all around, folks. Lots happening. It's a privilege to have you guys here as we close up this week and head into the weekend to get some relaxation, some rest, to recuperate if you guys are not feeling 100%. You all know how we do it, folks. You all know how we do it, and we're just so privileged to have all of you here. Share that live for us. Could you please do that for us and smash that emoji button too? We got a lot to share with you, folks. We got a lot to share with you. Great to see all of you at this end. Wherever you're joining us from the many, many places you all are joining us from. Some of you have been here with us all week. And again, I say, good people, again, I say we are so privileged to have you all here. We're trying to make sure that we are shared as well to all of the valid and credible places. And again, we say a very good evening to each and every one of you. Some folks are now coming in, and we've been on for about a couple seconds. We're gonna ring that bell for you guys as well. Don't think you've missed much at all. You're just in time. Just in time. Great to see you folks again, joining us from all over the world, at home here in Guyana, and those of you joining us from the diaspora. It's a privilege to see all of you here. Yep, it's a privilege to see all of you here, and we want to just make sure that we are shared to all of the valid and credible places. Let us know if you're receiving us loud and clear. Do let us know that. That's how we want to be received, loud and clear. Hearing us clearly, you're seeing us clearly. What more could we ask for, good folks? What more could we ask for? There's a lot happening at our end, and we're just trying to keep it together. Share the live for us. Smash that emoji button too, folks. As I said, we are delighted, nothing short of delighted to be here with you folks, and we're going to make sure that we're on the AFC page, among other places, wherever you're receiving us. Beverly Crandon, wherever you're receiving us tonight, ensure that you smash that emoji button, that you like that page as well. That you like that page. Dan Fordyce, we see the Lachman Aziz says, seeing you loud and clear. We're delighted and we're happy about all of that. And again, we're going to ring the bell for those of you who are now joining us, now coming in. So much to share with you as we head off into the weekend. So much to share right now, good folks. We got so much to share. So much to share. And if you know the broadcast, you know where we're going next. Video opener. Yep. We got some special. We got a lot of special folks here with us tonight. Where we go next, good folks, is where we go next. The opener. Like the opener don't want to come up. The opener might gotta be the closer. The opener might just gotta be the closer. Do we have it? I think we do. Let me ring the bell for. Let me wake up the folks who might be sleeping. The people at the back. Let me wake up the people at the back who might just still be sleeping. Do we have it now? Can we bust to move now? Is it possible? There we have it. The opener, folks. The opener. We love it. We're happy to be with you on time tonight. Those of you who are now joining us, want to let you know we're on time tonight. Don't come wrong, we funny. Don't do it. Folks, I'm so privileged. I think I have the greatest job in the world to represent you folks from the National Assembly, to represent you out here each and every day. It is such a privilege. I count it a privilege, and I do not take the task lightly at all. I don't take it lightly at all. Good folks, we've been talking about Kassin in the National Assembly. TNM, the new movement, former presidential candidate, now a member of the National Assembly. She should have been out a long time ago. But now she's still there. Hold on now, she's still there. And the folks at GECOM dilly-dallying and shilly-shally, as you shall hear shortly. Indulge us. You know, there used to be something. You shake a man's hand. They said that's a gentleman's agreement. Now, not so much. You can't trust them now. You gotta shake the hand, put in an agreement, sign, get a little blood, keep one of the children. Because people not keeping, they're under the bargain. That's what's happening. And folks, we're privileged to sit down with Commissioner Vincent Alexander today, who put his whole thing in context. He know the whole thing. Commissioner Vincent Alexander. That's your opener tonight. He know the whole thing, the whole story. Folks, take a look, take a listen. Share the damn live, smash the damn emoji button, and let me go along the road. Let me go along the road. Testing. I think we have it now, folks. I think we have it now. You have a story for us? Our number hasn't changed. 627-6963. You got a story for us. There we have it. Sorry. We were routing it wrong. It's my God. We had we had one job to do. One job, one thing to do. We had one thing. Thank you guys. At least I know y'all paying keen attention. From the top, folks. From the top. Vincent Alexander talking to that Ashni Kassin issue in the National Assembly.
First of all, we need to understand how we conduct elections in there. When parties make submissions of their list of candidates, on that list, they identify someone who's called a representative of the list. That's a very powerful office, because that's the person who has to make subsequent submissions, extracting names from the list to go into parliament. And it's the person who can also recall parliamentarian by simply writing to the speaker saying that they've lost confidence in a candidate, in a parliamentarian, and the person's recalled. It's a very powerful office. So, for example, in the APNU AFC, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Granger is the head of the list. Mr. Norton could not be in Parliament now if Mr. Granger had not submitted his name. That's a power position. So that with the joiner, it requires the heads of the three lists to sign for someone to be submitted to be in Parliament and or for someone to demit office. The agreement that they had was that they would share the one seat, which really only belongs to the Justice Party in the arrangements of the joint. But they decided to share it proportionately based on the number of votes they got in that block. That sharing meant that the ANOG would have the largest portion or the largest period in Parliament. The Justice Party took the first period, honorably emitted. ANOG then allowed TNM to have the second group because TNM was only entitled to about 4 months in Parliament. And ANOG's position was, if you don't go now and there's a snap election, you will never go. So since we have a far longer period, somewhere in the vicinity of 2 years, then go take your 4 months. We'll go in afterwards. And if there's a snap election, then all of us would have served. That's how ANOG allowed TNM in second. And so, in fact, she was supposed to demit office last year, just about the time when the parliament went into recess. She should have demitted office. What we also need to know is that when, in fact, she took up the seat, the signatories were the 2 original signatories from the Justice Party and from ANOG. But there was a change of the signatory for TNM. And there is where things started going wrong. Because when the speaker writes to GECOM, asking them to extract someone from a list based on representation from the heads of the list, GECOM should authenticate that the people who represented the speaker that they wanted to change were the original or the serving heads of the list, because it is GECOM to whom the first submission is made in relation to who heads the list. So we are the custodian of that record. And what occurred, in the words of the CEO himself, is that when the submission was made by the speaker to GECOM for Asher to occupy the seat, he did not check our records and took on the face of the document the fact that Morgan was now the representative of the list and allowed her in. That was not controversial because the parties had agreed she would go in anyhow. So it didn't raise a red flag. But the red flag occurred when she was to demit office and did not demit office. And the original representative of the list then came forward to take action and was told that you were not representing this list. He then approached GECOM to say, what's my status? Why am I not being allowed to function? And GECOM started to dance, I would say. All GECOM had to say to him there and then is, look, you are the representative of the list as far as we know from our record. But having been negligent previously and allowed Morgan in, GECOM started to cover its own height and therefore was not prepared to share with Ford simple information, which if he gets, he can then use otherwise. GECOM has no authority in terms of recall. So GECOM is being truthful when it says it's not for us to get Asher out of Parliament, but it's certainly for GECOM to respond to Ford saying, we don't have information that we moved you from head, and therefore you are still the head. And with a document of that sort, who knows what next Ford would do. But what GECOM has done is dilly, dally, duck and hide, and not issued him that letter. And so Asher continues to sit in Parliament because Ford has been stymied from taking any action in terms of her illegal occupation of the seat. And that's really the source of the problem from the standpoint of GECOM. Obviously, there is collusion because the GECOM PVP commissioners have not facilitated the writing of the letter. They started off by saying there's nothing for GECOM to address. And the chairperson herself has not been truthful for the fact that the CEO erred in the first instance, and that as a constitutional body, if we make a mistake, we have to accept that and to correct it. And what they're not doing is correcting it, and therefore facilitating Asher remaining in the parliament. And one can see this as a collaboration between the PVP GECOM commissioners and the PPP, because the next issue that is obvious is that they have used Asher as a member of the opposition to occupy the deputy speaker's position, which normally goes to the opposition. But in this instance, they voted the opposition to determine which opposition member will occupy that seat and have gotten Asher in, who has been voting solidly with the PPP. And so they seem to have an interest in her not demitting office. And so all of them, I would say, the speaker, the PPP parliamentarians, the commissioners are all complicit in ensuring that the plot is not exposed and that Ashley remains there to serve them. GECOM has been ducking, hiding, drafting letters, not concurring on what letter should be sent. and finding every reason, I would say, not to send the letter that Mr. Ford has requested, not to reply to the letter that Mr. Ford has sent to GECOM. GECOM has to do what it has to do. And therefore, I think the exposure of GECOM may finally serve the intended purpose. We have serious problems in this country. You have people who form parties on the pretext that they represent something new and different. But here we have a clear instance of them being probably worse than those who they suggest they want to replace. The chances are also in the formation of these parties that these are front organizations, because here we see her in complete collaboration with the PPP in doing something that's completely immoral and illegal. Well, the idea really is to keep her there. And to keep her there, you have to keep Anna out. And that's exactly what they do. To keep her there, you have to keep Anna out. Anna, as a small party, may represent a difference. I can't put my head in the block for Anna. But certainly TNM has turned out not to be representing a difference. And to note that TNM that contested the elections is not the same TNM that sometime in 2022, the entire leadership of TNM was removed, and there were a new set of people headed by Ashni, who are now the leadership of TNM. The entire original leadership has been removed, including Ford. But that removal does not add up to removal of the head of the list, because the law has specific provisions in that regard. And the law requires that the candidate, at least 50% of them, should sign on to a removal of the head. The letter that Ashni sent to GECOM, which she said had been sent in 2022, but GECOM has no record of it, which she resent in 2024, does not have the signature of 50%. It has 8 signatures, so that there is also here an attempt to, if at all, remove Ford, to fraudulently do so, because they did not get the support required by the law, by I think it is Section 97 of the Representation of the People's Act, in relation to how the leader of the list is determined and or removed. Certainly it has to affect GECOM's credibility. This is not the only matter in which GECOM has behaved in such a manner. We have this problem with GECOM in terms of the appointment of CEO, somebody who did not meet the requirements for appointment, and they use a 4-3 vote to impose the person. We have a similar situation with the deputy chief elections officer who did not meet the requirements, and they use a 4-3 vote to impose the person. GECOM is in cahoots with government and is involved in a lot of immoral acts to support the current regime.
Yep. I want to thank Randy Kutlu pulling that together for us. Randy, again, on the forefront. Yep, valid, credible information. Valid, credible information. That's the opener, folks. We got so much more coming. So much more in the pipeline coming down tonight. Let's start with some of the things we're covering internationally, a couple of them, and then we're going to circle back to the 592. I want to come back to quick. A lot of people making children, apparently. A lot of folks making children. Still looking for the daughter. Still trying. We're going to circle back to the 592 and tell about my problems on the other side. They're telling us that the world population is expected to grow by more than 2 billion. Jesus. Slow down. Slow down a little bit, good folks. 2 billion by the next few decades, peaking at around 10.3 billion, according to a new report out of the United Nations. It's we all going. Y'all vote APNU AFC. Please and thank you. All of you. Vote APNU AFC, the coalition. Yeah, they're telling us that the population, however, I ain't telling us bad news. A little bit of bad news gotta come with it. They're telling us that this is gonna taper off. It's up to 10.3 billion. Right? Peaks around, listen to this. Tell me if you can still be here. You're gonna peak around 2080. Folks, in 2024. 10.3 billion is gonna peak around 2080. Right? And then it's going to be settling at around 10.3 around that time. And then they say it's going to start a decline, right? Somewhere there about. Yeah, it's a lot. So we're following that, folks. The world population about to explode. Whoosh, whoosh, Just like that. If you're not Guyanese, if you're not putting in your little sound effects. And when you're speaking, you're not Guyanese if you're not putting in the little sound effects. So that's what's happening internationally, folks. Because of some of you right here, where you are in the diaspora and so on, world population set to increase. And then we're coming in quickly, folks, with some of the stuff we're tracking around the region. I think it's about 1 or 2. It better be 1 and 2. I want to come home very, very quick. It better be 1 and 2. How y'all doing now? From the many places you guys are joining us from this evening, ring the bell for y'all as y'all come in. Stop from around the region, folks. What do we have tonight? USAID, we told you, 6 million donated quite recently, 6.5. So these hard hit hurricane barrel countries, Trinidad and Barbados and Vincent and the Grenadines, Jamaica is one of them. But listen to this. The Americans are telling us that USAID is set to give 28 million to the Caribbean, but this time it's for advancing inclusive economic growth, climate adaptation, among other things. This was coming to the Caribbean. Yeah, but I didn't let them, China coming here and Russia coming here and take no foothold. They're doing what they got to do. 28 million US is set to fund some of these projects here. Inclusive economic growth is one of them, and climate adaptation. We hear so much of that. This is the day and age of climate adaptation, and this is going to spread around a number of countries again in the Caribbean region here. And that and the particular project is one called One Caribbean. Where here? Does this sound familiar? One Caribbean, and it promotes again addressing all of these different things: climate adaptation, disaster risk management, private sector engagement, and even, believe it or not, food security issues as well, right up there. So thank you, Americans. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Thank you, Uncle Sam, for looking out. Thank you so much. Respect and manners. Respect and manners. Nicole Terrier, Ambassador Nicole Terrier, please tell your colleagues thanks to us. Please tell them thanks for us. Look at us, we're following, folks. In the 592, did say, once we come. We all are doing it. 2,000 of you watching us on a Friday night. I feel a little privileged. I'm going to ring the bell for all of you. And you're all about to help boost the world population there. So this 2,000 is probably about 15,000 if you do your multiplication right. We're in the 592. My Lord. While the rest of the world, let me stick this in here. It's a good point as any. While the rest of the world population boosting, we're different. While the rest of the world population boosting, we're different. We're very different. I'll come in there. But before I get there, folks, brace it over. Brace it over. I'm begging you. Brace it over. Because as we were coming on, I did indicate to you folks, we had a bit of breaking news as we were coming on. A smash up. An accident on the Linden Suez Dyke Highway. My God, you got kids involved here. One already succumbed to his or her injuries. And they said they have 2 more at the hospital. As we come on, the imagery, we're not going to show you all of what we saw, folks. We're not going to show you all of what we saw, but the accident report for today, brace it over. You by yourself, you with somebody, you're sitting down. Are you sitting down? Right, please. Viewers discretion advised. We're not going to show you anything that's too gory. But take a look at some of what transpired in the Linden Suez Dyke Highway a little earlier this afternoon.
You should take a lot of light.
Oh, Lord.
All engine gone, bro. Whole engine gone, boy. This is what this is.
They can't pass me like a boat, like tell me why post photo to you can't tell them. Can't even know my plate by. Why pass me like a bullet spawn by. Plus I drinking and drinking, and when he could pass me, what's it? I don't think I know. I don't think I know. Yeah, but I didn't know from the book side.
The police that there he said. I don't trouble the fire. I'm not talking on
Sure. Engine, car, wheel. Sure.
I just real bullets stand by. Close the door. Close the door.
Yep, that's some of what we saw, folks. And if that car hit that truck, or if the truck hit the car and that amount of damage was done to that truck, could you imagine? Could you imagine what transpired there? Our thoughts and our prayers are with this family who lost the loved ones. And, you know, we pick up this report from another credible and valid place for information, Big Uncle Gordon, mostly news site, news source, and they're telling us here that a Linden man and his young grandson have been confirmed dead at this accident on the Linden-Suzdijk Highway just this afternoon. The dead man has been identified as former national footballer Carlisle Hunt of Rainbow City, Linden, and the identity of the child has been given as Malik Roberts. They tell us, in addition to that, according to a news source, that two other grandchildren survived this smash up here in the Linden-Suzdijk Highway, and they've since been admitted to the Mackenzie Hospital there in Linden, but in very, very serious condition. According to a news source, the reports have indicated that the grandfather, Carlisle Hunt, was the driver of the car that was involved in this smash up with a wood-carrying truck. It is suspected that Hunt, who was heading to Linden, might have lost control, slammed into the truck, resulting in his car flipping over several times. And again, according to news source, it says that the news site says that the car was recently purchased and was still carrying the trader's number plate. And that is coming out of news source this evening. Again, our thoughts and our prayers are with this family. And that's the accident report for today. Very, very sad times. And we talk every day here at least about the carnage on our roads and our waterways. Violence against women and girls. These are the other pandemics that we face on an unabated. That being said, I want to turn your attention to another grave issue. They're telling us a lot of babies are being lost at Suddie Hospital. Believe it or not, and I saw Dr. Karen Cummins calling out the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, quite recently. So we're losing folks on the roads in all these accidents, and then we're losing our babies as well. What's happening in this country? Certain you guys are forever me asking this question. What's happening in this country? What's happening? What's going on? Here's Dr. Karen Cummins talking a little bit about this issue. Suddie Hospital. What's happening at Suddie Regional Hospital?
Member of Parliament Dr. Karen Cummins said today that there is a crisis at the Suddie Hospital.
There is a crisis at Suddie Hospital leading to high incidence of newborn deaths. Several nurses and doctors at the hospital have reported that there were no obstetricians and gynecologists on duty for the last 2 weeks. And as such, Mothers and their babies were at risk of adverse pregnancy outcomes.
She said that both gynecologists were on leave. The gynecological department is without a specialist.
The chief medical officer had sent a general doctor, a medical practitioner who's not a specialist in, we will call it OBGYN, obstetrics and gynecology, and even surgery, and to do surgeries and to more or less monitor the mothers, at-risk mothers.
She described the situation as incompetence on the part of the Ministry of Health. The new head of the department isn't qualified to undertake surgeries. To make matters worse, the neonatal unit has been deemed unsafe.
That there were at least 5 deaths in the month of June, which forced management to close the unit. Information pertaining to the deaths can be verified from the hospital records.
Dr. Cummings said that the pediatrician is also unavailable to manage the department. For at least 2 weeks, both the neonatal and pediatrics departments were covered by a Cuban doctor who isn't licensed to practice.
Our country's health system boasts 5 levels of health care, which range from the health posts, health centers, district hospitals, regional hospitals, and the referral hospital, Georgetown Hospital Corporation, level 5 we call it. Our system also in health in Guyana is also decentralized, as decision-making is spread throughout the 10 administrative regions, which allows for less bureaucracy, but rather a more efficient and better healthcare system.
She said that there was a $34 million input at the hospital. This was to retrofit the neonatal unit. At the same time, $24.1 million was provided for the nurses' hostel at the hospital.
Though there are several predictors of neonatal mortality, such as low birth weight, preterm births, and maybe the length of stay at the NICU. And when we consider complications of preterm birth, birth asphyxia, neonatal infections are among the common causes of neonatal mortality. The point is that such serious consequences and occurrences will reflect the type of prenatal, intrapartum, and neonatal care being offered at the facility.
She said that there is need for an immediate investigation.
Yep. I saw some of you saying, Frank gotta go. Is only enough? I think we had a no confidence. Frankly, National Assembly, they've been trying to dodge for a long time. But what miss you don't pass you. What miss you don't pass you, folks. Moving on, as we on that, we started with what we talked a little bit about what happening on the Linden Suits Highway, that horrific accident. We're losing our babies here, the hospital, and just yesterday, fire and more. Another story.
The Ghana Fire Service is investigating the circumstances which led to a fire at Hope West and Moore, East Coast Demerara, that tragically claimed the life of 3-month-old baby Leroy Archer. The fire was reported at about 10 hours 25. The crew, consisting of 9 firefighters, was commanded by Station Officer Moore, Sub-Officer Charles, and Section Leader Cumberbatch. Information gathered at the scene revealed that the child's mother, Chandroti Manikchan, was in the bathroom while the child was left in the bedroom. The mother reported that someone began alerting her to a fire in the house. She ran to the bedroom to get her child, but the room had already been engulfed in flames, forcing her to exit the building. Ghana Fire Service is currently investigating the matter.
Yep. One of the questions being asked, thoughts and prayers with our family. One of the questions being asked tonight is, who is investigating Brutus? Your only Brutus gone on leave. Some $14.5, $16.5 million issue. Trying to deposit that in the credit union of the Ghana Police Force, and then they're getting 1.5 million interest. You know, we're hearing some senior policemen get big apartment buildings and many properties and a whole host of things, preparing for retirement. And the question was asked of the Minister of Home Affairs today, who investigating Brutus? Who's going to do the investigation since he has gone on leave to facilitate an investigation? We're told that the minister did not respond. He stayed quiet. That's what we're hearing. He stayed quiet. Who do we need to investigate? Folks, Satan can't cast out Satan. Isn't that what the good book says? Satan can't cast out Satan. It don't work like that. The Alliance for Change had a press conference today. And Nigel Hughes, the leader of the Alliance for Change, Nigel Hughes, he had some thoughts on this very matter. Take a look. Take a listen.
The Ghana Police Force cannot be expected to investigate itself, particularly at the level of allegations of criminal activity against high-ranking members at the level of the Deputy Commissioner of Police. An independent external investigation must be conducted. The statement by the Commissioner of Police that there was no attempted deposit of tens of millions of dollars by his deputy into the credit union is a cause for great concern and immediately necessitates his standing down as commissioner during the course of an independent investigation. The powers vested in the commissioner, who can influence the conduct of any police investigation into his deputy, coupled with his clear attempt to provide cover for his deputy, necessitate his removal from office during the course of the investigation. The Commissioner has already passed retirement age and may wish to consider his options as a retiree.
Yep. Consider your options, Commissioner. Consider your options as a retiree. And folks, this is the point that we're going to fight. As we're in Nigel, we're going some files now. We're going some files because, all of those sanctions that came down recently and the Mohammeds and May Toussaint Thomas, and whoever else, again, asked today about this matter. Robertson said they're waiting, government is waiting on all the evidence and all the information gathered by the U.S. authority before any further actions can follow locally. They're waiting on all the evidence and all the information, so this thing don't get started at all. Right? This thing like Brutus is not going to get started at all. That's what they're telling us. Before any further actions, they're waiting on all. I hope he don't going through JFK and then his problems. I hope he is not going through JFK and ends up in problems. That's my hope. That's my hope. Because somebody else is going through as well. Somebody else was going through of recent. And we were made to understand that federal agents escorted, it is alleged federal agents escorted Vikram Bharat, Minister of Natural Resources, off an aircraft and he was interrogated. The minister had since responded. He said he did talk to federal agents, but the U.S. authorities were expediting his clearance through immigration. They were expediting his clearance. He did admit to chatting with federal agents, but he said this was, they chatted about Guyana's development. That's what he said. They chatted about Guyana's development. Folks, I have a guest tonight in the person of Dr. Vincent Adams, and he straddles both fields because here we're talking about the Natural Resources Minister, and Dr. Vincent Adams is an expert in oil and gas and all things petroleum, believe it or not. And then on the Nigel Hughes front, we talked a little bit about conflict of interest and what does all this mean. And we did ask him about this whole issue of all of this stuff with ministers being detained and all of that. So rock and come in, Dr. Vincent Adams. Rock and come in, folks. Share the live, smash that emoji button, please, and thank you. Valid, credible information all the way. Dr. Vince Adams, welcome to our program. Welcome to our broadcast. It's a privilege having you here with us once more. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sharon, and welcome to your wonderful visitors. I know you've noticed you've been either evading or avoiding me for a long time.
Well, no avoiding or evading this evening.
I'm glad to.
Happy to have you back. You wrote a very fiery letter a few short hours ago that is making the rounds in the press, and you kind of wailed in, not just waded in, wailed into the Vice President Jagdeo, the Minister of Natural Resources in this country, really and truly, on a lot of things, more oil than gas. And I think one of the larger themes you hear that in this very powerful letter is he has no authority to say who have got a conflict of interest with ExxonMobil, and then you laid out a whole number of things. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, I know you call it fiery, but of course I've gotten a lot of calls. Some call it brutal, uh, with with a tint of levity. But no, without question, and it's not that I have the time to be getting on writing stuff, wasting time with this man. But you just can't let him get away with what he does and what he says. He just he just spouts a lot of nonsense, a bunch of lies. Everything that comes out of this man's mouth is a lie, and he treads on the fact that some people are struggling. They don't even have time to check or and see what he's saying, and he's just propagandizing the whole population.
Correct.
So people like ourselves, we've got to inform the folks as a counter. Before people start taking what he's saying as gospel. And because you look at the guy, and when he says it, he's got a straight face. He looks at
Mm-hmm.
this innocent church-going guy. He has a straight face. He has no shame whatsoever. So that's why we have got to lace into him whenever he says these type of things, and bring him down to cut him down to size where he belongs. So to start with the letter, like you said, he should be the last person to ever be criticizing anybody about a conflict of interest. The very last person, and to question whether they're taking Exxon's side instead of Guyana's side. I mean, this guy, and I laid out a litany of examples, and the first and foremost, is of course the parent company guarantee that
Correct.
we, as the coalition government, when I was at the EPA, we put it into place. Exxon agreed to it. Let people understand, Exxon agreed to it. They signed it into the permit. And as soon as this man gets into office, he sided with Exxon. By the way, we had to drag Exxon with their nails scraping the walls to sign that thing. But what we told them, that they will not produce a barrel of oil unless we get that parent company guarantee. So it's not a question where they had refused it. They agreed to sign it. They put it into law by signing the permit. And as soon as we left, this man went and removed it. He removed it from the permit and from the law. And that was the reason why we had the lawsuit by the two citizens that resulted in Judge Kassin's ruling. And Judge Kassin was very clear. Judge Kassin said that the permit had clear vanilla language. There shouldn't be any other interpretation. And we thought that the case that was going to be a face-saving way out for this man and his government. Instead, the guys, they buckled down. They dug in even deeper and decided that they were going to appeal that case. They were going to join with. They were joined at the hip, which is what I said. They decided to join with Exxon to appeal the case against his own people's interest. So he should not be talking anything or ridiculing anybody for going against people's interest. He has right now another thing we had in place, this whole capping stock that has now become the biggest thing in the news, and he's trying to take credit for it. We're the only country, which is absolute nonsense.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah, this capping stock, he's trying to brag. Well, we're in one of 13 countries that have this capping stock now, with big celebration and everything else. Here is the story behind it. As a matter of fact, for the past 2 years, I've been raising a serious issue with this capping stock, what they have done in terms of reversing what we had. By the way, the first thing for people to recognize, because a lot of people call me and say, "Boy, this is a good thing that the government is doing." Absolute nonsense. This was there since we were there, but we didn't believe it was a big deal to celebrate a capping stock. I mean, where do you stop the number of great things that we did? We didn't have to celebrate, but he's using this to politicize it, to let it appear as if they come up with this capping stock. So let me give folks a background here. This capping stock was developed. They remember the Macondo spill, the British petroleum spill, where they had a well that flowed for 8 to 9 days. It was just gushing out millions of barrels of oil into the ocean. And the traditional methods for stopping the flow, stopping the swell, or plugging the swell didn't work. So they decided, they invented, and the Macondo spill was what, in 2010? So just a short, basically 14 years ago. So they decided that they were going to invent this big, heavy piece of metal, basically, conceptually. It's between 50 tons and 100 tons. It's really heavy. And you bring it and you put it on top of the well so that, it's a lid, so that the pressure from the flow cannot, overcome that. So that's the main, and that's what the invention is. Now, the key thing is to get that capping stock. You've got to have it readily available, stored in a location where you can get it to the ship as soon as possible. Myself and Dr. Bino, who was heading the Department of Energy, we called in Exxon and tell Exxon to give us a plan to get that capping stock at the site as soon as possible. Their first recommendation was for 20 days. And we told them that you've got to be out of your mind. We want that thing down to as minimum as possible. We worked down the numbers until we got to 3 days. And in order to get it to 3 days, it has to come out of South Trinidad, the southern tip of Trinidad, because they have, the logistics and everything to get it out from there. It's, they've got the draft and everything to get it out. So the best we could have done was 3 days. We looked at Guyana. There is no way we could have got it out of Guyana in that period of time. But that was not important. Bringing it to Guyana was not important. It's wherever we can get it for the minimum time. So we started for 3 days. You know what we did, Sharon? We put it into the permit, which is making it law, into the Payara permit, right in 2020. So for him to be coming up now and trying to let it appear, well, they're the ones who've initiated this. We put it into the Payara permit in 2020 with the intention of going and changing all the permits. Of course, we know what happened. They got rid of me in 2020 also. After I had already written the Payara permit, I put that in there that Exxon has to have the thing stored in southern Trinidad based on the direction from myself and Dr. Bino. That was already written. They've already agreed to it. Do you know what they've done now, Sharon? They went and secretly changed that 2020 Payara permit last year, June. Normally, when you're changing or revising an environmental permit, you would advertise it, put it in the newspapers. I never saw all of that. I just stumbled upon a revised Payara permit that was revised last year, June. And when I looked at it, I was astounded. Guess what happened? They removed the requirement of the 3 days. They triple it, Sharon, to 9 days. So and then bragging that they're taking it out of Guyana, which doesn't matter. But of course, Sharon, you've seen already where it will be stored in Guyana. It is going to their friends and family shore base. And it costs it. I want to see what are we paying? What are we paying to store it at their friends and family shore base? So they moved it from Trinidad because their friends and families weren't making, obviously, probably, one could only assume that they're taking it there now. And guess who owns the shore base and they said that's where you're going to end up at Green. And that's the other thing. Something such as that is so important. They do not even have a plan. It's temporary stored based on what I read in the article. It's temporarily stored on the East Bank, someplace on the East Bank, But then the permanent location will be at the shore base at West Demerara because I guess it hadn't been completed yet. Again, do you know who owns that shore base on the West Demerara side, right? By Breeden Hoop. It's going to cost a lot of money just to store and keep that thing maintained on the West Demerara side. So here we
Interesting.
are. They're increasing. They're increasing the minimum time that we had of 3 days, tripling it to 9 days. So you're going to have 6 full days extra if you got a spill of oil gushing into the Caribbean, which could amount to, within that 6-day period, it could amount to hundreds of thousands of pure barrels of oil to even 1 million barrels of oil gushing into the Caribbean, and at the detriment of our environment, our health and safety, not only ours, Cheryl, but also our neighbors throughout the Caribbean. They would suffer financially and environmentally. You saw firsthand what happened with that little spill
Correct.
in Tobago.
Correct.
And that was only, Cheryl, that was only about 30,000 barrels.
And Dr. Vince, you make the point that in comparison to the Macondo spill, this could bankrupt not only Guyana, this could bankrupt the region. That's a point you made very strong in this letter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, but it is irresponsible. It is reckless. It is callous in this government to be. This is, and again, I want people to know: don't take this. They're celebrating and giving the people the impression that they were there. This initiative, it's absolute nonsense. It's propaganda. We put it into the permit since 2020, and when I left, and when Dr. Bino left, they removed it from the permit. They replaced it with a 9 days requirement, which is, they're saying, okay, we can, it's okay to have a spill for 6 extra days as long as my friends and family are in a position to make money. So that's what it comes down to.
Doc, let me ask you some rapid fire things quickly before we wrap up. One of the things that Mr. Jagdeo says, Vice President Jagdeo says, is that you're the darling of the media. They don't interrogate you nearly as enough because you are the one who signed the 2019 PSA, the production sharing agreement, even though they promised to renegotiate it, but now cry sanctity of contract. How do you respond to that?
Well, of course, we now know that that's a lie because, Gail Teixeira went to the United Nations Human Rights Committee and said that I signed the PSA. Not only did I sign the PSA, she told that eminent, forum, not only did I sign it, but I was the one who hid the $18 million signing bonus. And all of that happened, Sharon, all of that happened in 2016. I arrived in Guyana to serve my country in October of 2018. Mm-hmm. So here I was. I didn't know I could clone myself, or maybe that might be the charge that. Well, however, Gail Teixeira, I demanded an apology through my attorneys. She refused. So we're moving forward, and to hold her accountable. And the same thing with Jagdeo, when he got just keep repeating that I signed. I don't know, I must be running around like gremlins in their head or something. They can't sleep at night. I'm just giving them nightmares because he kept lying that somehow I signed the Lisa 1 permit that was signed 18 months by his own man, Mr. Parshram, who was acting before I arrived, signed the Lisa 1 permit, and he's telling me, oh, the worst permit, and I signed the worst permit on the planet. And so yesterday, he was forced by an astute reporter from the Kaiju News to apologize. So he apologized, saying, well, okay, I didn't know. But however, so he apologized. But here's what he said on the backside of the apology. Oh, but whatever permit he signed is the same thing or it's worse than it. Which means he hadn't even looked and see, but he's making up these assertions.
Correct.
That's what he does. He shoots from the the guy is just wild. Is this the kind of person that we want as a leader of this country to trust any information that is coming from him? I say absolutely not. The people, they cannot trust anything coming from this man.
Yeah. Doc, why do you think he's so bothered about this conflict of interest story, knowing his own experience and history with ExxonMobil? He seems to be fixated on this conflict of interest issue.
But you would think a lot of people give him a lot of credit that he's got, he's smart. Okay, Sherrod, if I don't think that you have to be smart to know that this is something that I would keep out of the news as much as possible. I don't want to bring up such a question as a conflict, but I believe, Sherrod, this is the arrogance of this man. It's the arrogance. Is the Putinist type of this guy. This guy, remember, I like to call him the Kremlin, indoctrinated, leader. That's what he is. The guy is a Putinist. He copied everything from Putin, and he believes that he can get away with it because he's an autocrat. So he doesn't care about what anybody thinks. He's in control of Guyana. He believes that he's got everybody under control, and he can get up, especially on Thursdays or anytime, and say anything, and people believe. But as if people are not paying attention. He doesn't give Guyanese any credit for having any common sense, Sherrod. I'm telling you, he believes he can think for them. They don't have any brain in their head. He can tell them anything. So that is why people like yourself and me and others, we have got to keep calling him out and bringing him, cutting them down to size, the size where he belongs.
Yeah, and that letter of yours really cut him down to size. There's a lot happening in oil and oil and gas, the production of oil. Lots of money coming in, but Guyanese finding it hard to cope. The cost of living is increasing every day. Sabak News continues to point it out, one of those entities. Guyanese not seeing their way. A lot of accountability issue in oil and gas. The Petroleum Commission not yet operationalized, among some other things still lacking. And overnight, we learned that the Minister of Natural Resources, Vikram Bharat, had been detained and questioned by U.S. authorities. He did say that federal agents met him in the airport, but that they were chatting about national development. Quite strange. We're learning now that the U.S. airport authorities, the protocol folks, didn't even know that he was coming through. So it's quite interesting what is happening here. What are your thoughts?
Oh, the spin masters are at work, Sherrod. The one thing that you've got to give these guys credit for, they're very creative when it comes to spinning, except that they do not coordinate their spin, because you're hearing all kinds of different stories from various one of them. I just read something here where one of them said that, when they announced that the Guyana minister, natural resources minister, was on board, so they sent their high level folks, the immigration people, to escort him so that he can get out of the airport quickly.
That's another version.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they do not even coordinate. But again, they believe that they can tell people anything, and it doesn't have to make sense. Now, so here again with the oil money, we cannot overemphasize, Sharon, that 60% of the money goes into a small number of people's pockets, their friends and families, who gets all of the contracts. 60%, it's crazy. That does not happen in any part of the world. And then this man, when you're talking about, we like I said before, the arrogance and the barefacedness of this man, mentioned several times, and you would replay this man saying that the only thing that the opposition is interested in is feeding the people. So they don't care about people starving. Look what happened. Luckily we have people like yourself to always be out there on the ground to bring the story to the people, because a lot of times I don't know what's going on in the country unless I look at your program. Look at Sarah Joanna recently kicking out those poor people, putting them out without the house, without food. I saw them cooking some rice, and it turns my stomach in that big basin outside without shelter or anything, sleeping. I saw them looking at the kid sleeping on the bare dirt, and then they've got a heart to tell folks and to try to fool people that somehow the country is being developed. Sarah Joanna, you've been to all of them. Look at Hillfoot. Look at
Correct.
look at all
Success
my
spotting area. Amelia's Wild spotting area. Yeah.
even success. And I did better. I hope that Guyanese of all races will see that this is no longer about race. Okay, it's class. They are interested in the rich and their rich friends and family, because the poor Indians at Success, for example, the poor Indians at that place across in the Demar River, that you went to.
Plastic City there. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of it. So it's also, but the only thing that the only commonality with them and this and the suffering that they're allowing, the only commonality with the people who are suffering is that they're poor. It's crossing racial barriers. The same thing they did with the cane cutters in Bobis. You remember when they went on strike? They
Correct.
didn't even want to talk to them. So
Correct.
so people better wake up and understand. I know that the PPPs are predominantly Indian, but they're taking the Indian votes for granted. And I hope that they're paying attention and to see that this here is not about Indians and blacks anymore. By the way, my mother is Indian and my father is black. So this is not about politics and race, and racial bias here. It's about what's best for the country. So I'm calling on my on my Indian and black brothers and sisters to make sure that they look and see what this government is doing to them, and it's not a case where they're hiding it. They're not hiding it. It's in plain daylight for everybody can see, but they believe that they can fool people with their rhetoric and their hoax and their con. That's what their game is about.
Excellent. And as we wrap up, Dr. Vince, what are we missing as Guyanese, as in this whole oil and gas conversation? We're being distracted about who has conflict of interest, who doesn't have conflict of interest, who Exxon love more than who, and all of that. I even saw an admission out of the Vice President last week that he loves Nigel Lewis and a whole host of other things. What are we missing? What should we be focused on as we wrap up?
Well, of course, we've got an election. I think everything, and I always tell people, and this is what I've learned, by the way, in my past job. I hear people say all the time, well, I am not going to vote. I don't want to be any part of, I don't want to be involved in politics. Every single aspect of our lives, it's driven by politics. The amount of food we eat, the kind of food we eat,
the cost we pay for the food we eat.
Everything, the house you live in, the kind of house, the education you get, the kind of education, the road we drive on, everything is driven by politics. So what people are missing, you have no control over when you get into office, as we can see. I mean, when they get into office, you have no control over what you have control over, the best care of your interests. And what this government has proven is that they're not up to the task. They're about to taking care of their interests and their friends and families' interests. So what I think what we are missing is that we are to focus on the next elections, and that's where the power of the people comes in to change, because they're all suffering right now, and they've got control over who gets into office to make the political decisions for them. So nobody should be peddling this foolishness that they do not want to get involved in politics. Everything that you do and what affects you is political. So please, you're part of the political system.
Yeah. Agreed. Dr. Vince Adams, expert in oil and gas, all things petroleum. Thank you so much. You're the real expert, not these kind of folks that you got every Thursday talking about who got conflict of interest and all this foolishness. Don't wait so long to come back. Please just tell us when you want to come and explain some of these issues.
Here's the other thing, Sheridan, just a few seconds. In addition to the parent company guarantee, this man is allowing these people against the law, allowing them to to produce oil above the safe operating limit, which means that he's enhancing the probability of an oil spill, but does not want to have the coverage or the liability coverage to cover it if there's an oil spill. That's what he's doing. He's dumping. This is the other thing that he removed from the PIR permit that we put in there, was not to dump that all of that billions of gallons of hot, toxic, radioactive produced water that comes from those wells, not to dump it into the ocean, but to re-inject it in accordance with the international standard. They removed that also from the PIR permit that we put in there. So people, pay attention, because oil will only be here for about 25 to 30 years. So you need to make sure that we're well situated, the country is well situated. When oil is gone, we as the people, we can have a sustainable life.
Based on all you said, Dr. Vincent Adams, Jagdeo seems to be the one who is in bed with ExxonMobil. He seems to be battling for them on every front.
Well, what more proof do you want when we have, and people label him as a small. Oh, by the way, I forgot. Why would we forget this? What more evidence do you want, Sharon, than when Jagdeo, this man in the opposition, this man used to be jumping up and down in parliament that we, meaning the opposition, has sold out the nation's patrimony, and he's going to have ring fencing. He's going to renegotiate the contract. And it's the worst contract.
All those lofty things.
And the president, well, forget about when they even when they were in the opposition. When the president got into office as the president, I remember the famous interview with their own boy, the critics. The president told him, the critics asked him a specific question, if he will renegotiate the contract. He said, yes, he will renegotiate the contract. And then suddenly, Sharon, it turned on its head. So you tell me, what caused it? What caused that such a sudden turnaround? It's a huge, huge turnaround for him to go on the opposite side. I leave everybody to make the arrive at their own conclusion.
Some folks might start talking about brown bag and so on, but that's another discussion. Thank you very much, Dr. Vincent Adams, for being here with us this evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
That's it for this evening. That being said, thank you, Dr. Vincent Adams. You all have a fantastic weekend, each and every one of you. Thanks for being here with us. It's 9 past 9, approaching 10 past 9. And thanks for singing with us. Donna and Melanie and Sparkle, James and Gwyneth. Good night to all of you except Sam A. Sandra Hanover, Auntie Sandra, Coral Providence, and Maxine Pansy, Rick B, and Jelly G. Veronica Primo Rollins, good night to you as well. And all you are beautiful, fantastic folks. Have a great weekend. That being said, folks, that's our time tonight, and that's our program. That being said, good folks, have a great weekend. That's it. That's the last bell. Have a great weekend. We're going to see you guys right back here next week. Stay safe.